Every story has a turning point, a moment when everything changes. The turning point.
I dropped the phone like it was radioactive. The screen went black before I could replay the video, but it didn't matter. The words were already burned into my memory. You don't get to leave the show. You are the show. For a moment, all I could hear was the sound of my own breathing, shallow and frantic, drowned beneath the buzz of the motel's fluorescent light. I checked the door, still locked, deadbolt secure, the window shut tight. I hadn't given my real name, hadn't used my real phone, hadn't even stayed in the same part of town. And yet, they were still watching, not just watching, following, recording, editing, producing, like I was in a season 2 I never signed up for. I turned off all the lights and sat on the edge of the bed, staring into the dark. If they knew where I was now, there was no safe place left. I thought I had exposed them. I thought hitting send meant the end of their control. But now I realized it was never about exposure. It was about attention, about audience retention. They weren't hiding, not anymore. I was. At 3:47 a.m., the fire alarm in the hallway went off. Not the deafening scream of smoke detection, just a shrill, chirping pulse every 10 seconds, enough to keep me from sleeping, but not enough to make anyone evacuate. I peeked through the peephole. No smoke, no movement, just a hallway bathed in red emergency light. Coincidence? Maybe. But I didn't believe in coincidence anymore. Everything was a choice. Everything was placed. A sound here, a message there, subtle enough to deny, obvious enough to unnerve. By sunrise, I had made another decision. I had to leave the city, vanish completely, but not in panic. This time I would plan it better, quietly, strategically, no phones, no friends, just a new identity and an exit strategy. I would disappear the old-fashioned way. At 7:06 a.m., I walked into a local bus station with a hoodie pulled low over my eyes. I bought a ticket in cash to a small town I picked at random off the route board. Nothing touristy, nothing near highways, just off the grid. My stomach turned as I watched the clerk print my ticket. She smiled too brightly, like someone who'd just been given a direction. "You heading home?" she asked. I froze, then forced a laugh. "Just visiting a friend." "Hope it's a good visit," she said. We all need friends." That word, friends, it used to mean safety. Megan had been a friend. Now I couldn't hear it without feeling cold. I boarded the bus 10 minutes later, found a seat in the back. No one around me, no cameras I could see. I kept my eyes on the exits, the driver, the people who got on at each stop. I couldn't stop scanning faces, searching for someone, anyone I might have seen before. A flash of a cap, a certain walk, sunglasses that hid too much. 3 hours later, the bus pulled into a town that looked like it had fallen off the edge of a postcard. Main Street was 1 block long, a single diner, a gas station, a post office, perfect, forgettable, anonymous. I rented a room above the diner, paid cash, no ID, no questions asked. For the first time in days, I exhaled without shaking. I stayed inside for hours, curtains drawn, listening. Nothing, no buzzes, no knocks, no alarms, just the hum of an old refrigerator in the corner. I ran the shower, flushed the toilet, made noise deliberately, then froze, listening for a response. Still nothing. By nightfall, I almost believed I was safe, until I turned on the tiny TV in the corner of the room. The screen lit up, not to a channel, but to a paused frame. It was me, on the bus, sleeping. alone. And in the corner of the screen, a familiar red blinking dot. Live. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the remote or smash the screen. I just sat there, frozen, watching myself sleep on that bus like I was a character in someone else's life. The red dot blinked in the corner, patient, smug, alive. It wasn't just a feed. It was a mirror, a message. We see you. We always have. I tore the TV's power cord from the wall and backed away like it might explode. The silence after the screen went dark was worse than the video itself. Too quiet, too still. I grabbed my bag, the burner phone, and bolted out the door, heart pounding so loud it drowned out every footstep. Downstairs, the diner was nearly empty. A man in a trucker hat sipped coffee without looking up. The waitress hummed to herself behind the counter. Normal, mundane. But my eyes scanned everything now. The fake normal was the most dangerous part. I slipped out the back, through the kitchen, and didn't stop moving until I hit the edge of town. There was a wooded area to the west. Not much, but thick enough to disappear into for a while. I ducked into the trees and walked until the diner's rooftop vanished behind branches. Then I sat, knees tucked to my chest, hidden beneath the pines, and tried to breathe. They had access to everything, not just phones or laptops, TVs, cameras I hadn't seen, places I hadn't noticed. If they could hijack a motel screen in the middle of nowhere, then they weren't just watching. They were in control of the narrative. I wasn't the star of the show. I was a puppet on a stage I couldn't even see. The burner phone buzzed. I stared at it like it was a snake. New message, just 2 words. Nice view. I dropped the phone in the leaves like it might bite me. My head whipped around. I scanned the treetops, the brush, the shadows. Someone was close, or worse, someone had already been here, already left something. Maybe I was still being filmed. Maybe this moment, this panic, was exactly what they wanted to capture. I forced myself to calm down, think, not react, plan. Who were they? Not just Megan, not just the man from the clinic. This was a network, organized, funded, coordinated. The way the feeds worked, the equipment, the edits. It wasn't amateur. It was industrial, maybe scientific, maybe worse. I remembered the folder labeled pre-op. They'd been watching me for months, years. I pulled the notebook from my bag, the one I'd taken from Megan's drawer. I flipped back to the list of names. 6 others. No last names. But maybe, if I could find just one, I wouldn't be alone in this. I picked the name that felt the most familiar, Maria. No date, no notes, just a single underline, like Megan had planned to return to her but never did. I turned the burner phone back on, hands shaking, and searched the name alongside the phrase post-surgery and the town we'd both once lived in. I didn't expect much, but there she was. Maria C., age 42, featured in a local news article from 5 years ago, recovered from a rare, unexpected post-op coma. A quote from her. It felt like I was dreaming someone else's life, like I was being watched. She'd moved since then. I found a vague blog link. Nothing personal, no photos, but one entry stood out, titled, The Mirror Room. I clicked. The post was short, disjointed. You think you're alone until the walls talk back. You think it's recovery, but it's rehearsal. You think the mirror is a tool. It's a window. At the bottom, a single sentence. If you're reading this, you're still inside. I stared at the screen, heart lurching. Inside what? the show, the system, the experiment. And then it hit me. Maybe I had never left. Maybe the motel, the woods, the diner, all of it was still part of it. Controlled, staged, observed. The mirror wasn't the TV. It was the world around me. I walked for hours, through the trees, along a gravel road that led nowhere. Every step was a question. Every shadow a possible camera. The forest felt too quiet, too symmetrical, like it had been placed here, curated for a feeling, isolation, vulnerability, exposure, exactly the way I was supposed to feel. And it was working. By late afternoon, I found an abandoned rest stop, a cracked bench, a rusted vending machine with empty rows and shattered glass. It looked untouched in years, but somehow arranged, like it had been placed here not for use, but for mood. I sat on the bench, trying to think. I had the notebook, the burner phone, the list of names, one post from a woman who sounded as haunted as I felt. But what I didn't have, what terrified me most, was proof that any of this was still real, or if everything around me was just another constructed layer. Was I in the world, or in a version of it? What if the moment I'd escaped wasn't real at all? Just the next episode? Megan asleep on the couch, the burner phone, even the bus. What if they'd staged my freedom to see what I'd do with it? I thought back to something Megan said once, joking over drinks years ago. People act differently when they think they're being watched, but it's way more interesting when they don't know for sure. I didn't laugh then. I definitely wasn't laughing now. I reached for the burner phone again, opened the photo app, scrolled through the images I'd taken of the notebook, zoomed in on the names. Then I saw something I hadn't noticed before, barely visible on the edge of the paper, in the binding margin. Tiny letters printed faintly in the corner. LIR, batch, A7. It looked like a file label, not something Megan would have written. It was stamped industrial, clinical, LIR. My blood ran cold. Langley Institute for Research. That name, that place. It had popped up in one of the early folders on Megan's phone. A PDF of medical records I hadn't dared to open. But now it clicked. Langley wasn't just a research lab. It was their lab, their front, their shell, batch A7. I wasn't just a target. I was a test subject, a line item in a pilot study, probably with metrics, variables, control groups. This wasn't surveillance for blackmail. It was documentation, behavioral data. I wasn't being ruined. I was being studied. I stood up too fast, the air suddenly too thin. My mind spun. If I was batch A7, there were others. Maria, Ellen, Jody. We were all part of something. But what was it testing? How long we'd last? How we'd react? How far we'd run before we broke? A noise behind me snapped me back. A faint crunch of leaves. I turned sharply. Nothing. Just the wind brushing through dry branches. I waited, breath caught in my throat. Another crunch. Closer. Deliberate. I backed away from the bench, hands shaking, the burner phone still lit in my palm. The notebook slid halfway out of my coat. My back hit the edge of the vending machine, and then a voice, calm, even, familiar. You were never supposed to get this far. I froze. Out of the trees, a man stepped forward, mid-40s, trim, neutral clothes, clean-shaven, no glasses, no hat, no weapon, just the look of someone used to walking into rooms and being obeyed. My stomach twisted. I didn't recognize his face, but something in his posture felt familiar. the kind of familiarity you don't remember, but your nervous system does. I couldn't speak. He gestured to the notebook. We usually retrieve those before this point. I gripped it tighter. He sighed. You think this is a trap, but it's not. It's a test, and you passed. Silence. He stepped closer. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to offer you a position. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My body wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. My mind screamed, trap, trap, trap. But the part of me that had been questioning everything suddenly paused. What if this wasn't just manipulation? What if it was a shift? The man waited, not impatient, not threatening, just certain. I know what you think, he said finally, that this is more control, another layer, but it's not. It's clarity. I shook my head slowly. You were watching me, all of you. You still are. He didn't deny it. Why, I asked. My voice cracked on the word. Because we study extremes, pressure, authenticity. You were identified as uniquely receptive, emotionally resonant. Viewers responded to you more than any other subject in your group. Viewers, it still made my skin crawl. He saw my reaction and added, this isn't about humiliation, not anymore. It's about access. You've proven you understand the architecture. You adapted faster than we expected. I almost laughed. So what? I win a job? After being your lab rat? He smiled slightly. We prefer the term collaborator. The audacity of it made me dizzy. He took another step forward. I tensed, but he held his hands up. If you walk away, we won't stop you. Not this time. You've already been marked irrecoverable on the feed schedule. The audience thinks you're gone, dead even. Some are mourning. Others, still refreshing the stream, hoping for one more frame. He paused. But if you join us, really join, you'll never be powerless again. You'll be on the inside. I stared at him, jaw clenched. Doing what? Helping you destroy people? Not destroy, he said calmly. Shape. We observe. Guide. Some of our collaborators direct entire arcs, personalities, realities. We offer structure, truth sometimes, and sometimes distraction. The words didn't feel human. You created the story of my life, I said. You inserted pain and called it content. You watched me cry and took notes. He didn't flinch. And you survived. Stronger, sharper. You see now. That's rare. I shook my head. Why me? Because you still want answers, he said quietly. And because you're still watching, even as you're being watched. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small black card. No name, no number, just a silver emblem, a circle intersected by a single vertical line. I'd seen it once before, on the back of the phone Megan used to stream. I hadn't realized it was a logo, a brand, a signature. He held the card out to me. You don't have to decide now, but if you do, you'll know where to find us. I didn't take it. He didn't force it. Just placed the card on the bench where I'd been sitting. Then, without another word, he turned and walked back into the trees. I stood there for what felt like an hour. When I finally picked up the card, it was warm, as if it had been resting on skin, not metal. I didn't put it in my pocket. I threw it into the woods. Hard, it arced into the branches and vanished like a piece of ash. But deep down, I already knew it wouldn't be that easy to walk away. That card wasn't just an invitation. It was a thread, and I had just touched it. I didn't go back to the diner room. I couldn't. Whether that man was telling the truth or just playing the next card in a game I didn't understand, it didn't matter. I'd reached a new threshold. This wasn't about survival anymore. It was about understanding the machine, because if I couldn't kill it, maybe I could at least expose what made it bleed. I walked until dark, found an old payphone outside a shuttered gas station, picked up the receiver like it might shock me. I called Miriam, the only person I still trusted. She answered on the second ring. "You're alive," she breathed. "Sort of." "Where are you?" "Nowhere." A beat. "Do you still have the drive?" "No, but I still have the names." She hesitated. "I found something." I went still. "What?" "Someone from the list. Not Maria, not living. Her name was Stacy. Died 3 years ago. Car accident. That's what the records say." I felt something tighten in my chest. But there's no police report, no coroner's record, no obituary, just a note in a hospital database flagged as confidential. And guess where she was treated? My mouth was already forming the word before she said it. Langley. I leaned against the payphone booth, suddenly cold. Miriam continued. "There's more. I pulled an old staff roster. Langley used to list their research assistants publicly, grant stuff, transparency. There's one person who worked in the neurobehavioral lab. His name was Alan J. Reardon." That name, it jolted something. "I know that name," I whispered. "You should," she said. "He was your intake contact. From your surgery." My hands began to shake. He wasn't just a ghost from the clinic. He was the man in the video, the bookstore, the smile, the whisper. Perfect. Miriam went on. "He left Langley 2 years ago. No trace since. But someone online linked him to an encrypted forum, whistleblowers mostly. The site's dead now, but the Wayback Archive has partial logs." She sent me the link. I opened it on the burner. The page loaded slowly, glitchy, black background, white text, no images. The thread title read, "The Mirror Room is not a place, it's a stage. User RDN 100 tree post number 1. They call them subjects, but they're not. They're reflections, each one chosen because they represent a type, a pattern, a variable." I tried to stop it, but the program isn't local. It's global, franchised, layered. If you're reading this, you're probably in it. There were 4 replies. One just said, "Still watching." Another, "Too late for her. Check the fridge." I stopped, scrolled back, checked the fridge. Post number 3 had a timestamp. 2 days before Stacy died. Post number 4. I tried to pull one subject. She didn't make it. The system adapts. You don't end it. You just move deeper. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Whoever Reardon was, he'd tried to fight, maybe even help someone like me. But he'd failed, or vanished, or both. I felt sick. The notebook, the videos, the photos, it was all just surface. The real structure, the real trap, was deeper than surveillance. It was psychological scripting, control through architecture, emotion, identity. They didn't just film your breakdown, they wrote it first. I slid down the side of the booth, knees to my chest, fingers clenched around the burner. Somewhere, in some dark corner of the system, someone had labeled me A7, emotional anchor. I wasn't their puppet, I was their centerpiece, and that meant they'd never really let me go. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every rustle outside the booth, every flicker of shadow, felt like a camera panning. Somewhere out there, someone was watching the stream, my stream, and rating my fear in real time. I wondered if they had a live chat, if they placed bets, if someone typed, "She's going to cry in 3, 2, but I didn't. I just sat, cold, silent, refusing to give them that beat of vulnerability, that monetizable emotion. I would not bleed for their content. At dawn, I made a choice. I would stop running. Not because I felt safe, but because I was done playing the role they wrote for me. I walked back into town, returned to the diner, ordered coffee like a local. The waitress didn't blink. Maybe she hadn't seen the show, or maybe she had, and she was just another extra. I didn't care anymore. I needed to find Reardon, if he was still alive, if he hadn't already been swallowed by the mirror. I hacked into the burner's hotspot and traced a secondary contact listed on the old forum, an encrypted account that had posted only once under Reardon's original thread. It read, "The signal doesn't break, it just fragments. Sometimes the subject learns to transmit." It was signed, J. I followed that signature to a file drop buried inside an abandoned medical portal. There was only one document, no title, just a video thumbnail. I hesitated, then pressed play, static, then a flicker. A man sat in a windowless room lit only by a green desk lamp, his face blurred, not digitally, but by shadow, deliberate. He spoke slowly, quietly. "If you found this, it's already too late to disappear, but not too late to decide who you are." My heart pounded. "You're not a subject anymore. You're a transmitter. That's why they lost control of your narrative. You started generating your own signal, and they hate that. Because once someone like you starts sending out your own story, it spreads. It infects the others." I stared at the screen. They call it narrative destabilization. You call it intuition. Either way, they'll come harder now, not with threats, with offers, with familiarity, with characters you trust. Do not follow the old signals, and never return to a known location. He leaned forward, closer. "You have one advantage. You're being watched. So start performing, but make it your script." The feed cut out. I sat there, pulse in my ears. It wasn't just surveillance anymore. It was theater. And if I couldn't cancel the show, maybe I could hijack it. I opened the burner's camera, held it at arm's length, and for the first time in weeks, I looked into the lens on purpose. I spoke directly to the watchers. "Hi, I know you're still there. I know you're expecting tears, maybe a breakdown, a twist ending, but here's what you're getting instead, a rewrite." I smiled, cold, controlled. "You wanted authenticity? Watch what happens when I stop pretending I'm the victim." Then I ended the recording. I uploaded it to the same forum thread Reardon had started, and I titled it Breaking Character, Episode 0. Then I turned the burner off. Permanently. They wanted a show? Fine. But from now on, I'd be the one writing it. It didn't take long. Within 12 hours of uploading my video, the air around me changed. Not literally, but in that way you feel just before a thunderstorm. Charged, breathless, anticipatory, like the world was holding its breath to see what I'd do next. I stayed in town, moved to a cheaper motel farther from Main Street, cash only. I didn't turn on any phones, no emails, no cameras. But I still knew I was being watched, and that was the point. I let them see me walking to the library, browsing old newspapers, eating a sandwich at the park, normal things, boring things. But all of it was a performance. I knew every movement was a feed now, probably edited, clipped, analyzed. I was rewriting my arc. I left no notes, no signals. I let the silence grow. It made them nervous. On the third day, the message came. A plain white envelope slid under the motel door while I was in the shower. No return address, no markings. Inside, a single USB drive and a typed note. Congratulations. You've achieved viewer autonomy. You now have the choice to delete your stream. But remember, without the audience, you do not exist. I stared at it. This wasn't a threat. It was a test. Again. They weren't trying to control me anymore. They wanted to see what I'd choose. An exit or one last broadcast? I took the drive to the library that night, plugged it into a terminal deep in the back where no one could see me. No login, just a single file, stream shut down, protocol, M4V. I clicked play. The video was simple, just me. Clips from all phases of the project, childhood home video, clinic footage, Megan spoon-feeding me soup, the bookstore, the tears after surgery, the first time I laughed in weeks, the moment I found the notebook, all cut together like a tribute, like a eulogy. Over it all, a voice, not mine, the voice of the audience. We watched you because you were real. We stayed because you didn't know. We fell in love with your suffering. We feared your awakening. We wondered what you'd do when you saw us. I sat there transfixed. This wasn't just surveillance. This was intimacy as currency. My pain, my trust, my choices, they were the product, the story. And now they were offering me the power to end it, to cut the feed. But here's the thing about being the center of a show for years, even unknowingly. You learn something about attention and about what happens when it's gone. I hovered over the delete button, then paused. They wanted me to erase it. That would complete the arc. That would give them closure. That would give them peace. But I wasn't interested in peace, not anymore. I didn't delete the stream. I opened a new file instead, titled it Final Transmission. Then I started typing. I didn't cry, not this time. Instead, I stared at the screen in front of me, the blinking cursor waiting like a silent audience, and started to write. Not a confession, not a cry for help, just a record in my own voice. If you're watching this, you already know too much. Maybe you think you found something secret, something thrilling. Maybe you think I'm brave or broken or brilliant. Maybe you think this was all a performance. You're right and you're wrong. I paused, let the silence sit, then kept going. I used to think being seen meant being known, that if someone watched long enough, they'd understand me. But I've learned something. Being watched doesn't mean you're understood. It means you're useful. The cursor blinked, waiting. They made me a character, a type, a channel. I was edited, scored, looped, analyzed. They didn't want my life. They wanted my reactions. I leaned closer to the keyboard. No more filter, no more fear. But here's the twist you didn't expect. I'm not asking for privacy. I'm not begging for freedom. I'm giving you a mirror. What you did to me, you're doing to yourselves. Every scroll, every click, every time you stayed quiet when it felt wrong. You became part of the system. You are the audience. You are the show. My hands were steady now, my breath calm. So go ahead, keep watching, But know this, I'm not scared anymore. You can't shame someone who's already seen everything. I uploaded the file, public, unencrypted, no password, no redirect, just live. Then I walked away, no disguises, no panic, just one final act. I left the burner phone in the booth. I left the notebook on a park bench. I left the USB drive in the library's return slot. And I walked down the street, into the sunlight, not caring if 1,000 cameras followed. Because for the first time since this started, I chose what stayed in the frame.
If this story moved you, there's more to come. Subscribe and don't miss the next turning point.